For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. President Joe Biden delivered a State of the Union last night, making his case for 4 more years in the White House as he heads to the November election in a rematch with Donald Trump. Biden touted his efforts to cut back the deficit he said was caused by Republicans' $2 trillion tax cuts during Trump's presidency. Though he never mentioned Trump, Biden vowed to reverse that with the tax on the wealthy.
It's my goal to cut the federal deficit another $3 trillion by making big corporations and the very wealthy finally beginning to pay their fair share. Remember in 2020, 55 of the biggest companies in America made $40 billion and paid zero in federal income tax. Zero. Not anymore. Thanks to the law I wrote and we signed, big companies have to pay a minimum of 15%. But that's still less than working people pay in federal taxes. It's time to raise corporate minimum tax to at least 21%.
Biden also spoke of his predecessor as backwards and full of resentment, revenge, and retribution, and promoted his vision for the U.S. as moving forward, pledging to support a woman's right to abortion and fertility treatments. Biden also announced the U.S. military will build a port in Gaza to deliver and unload aid to the Palestinian coastal territory.
I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters. No U.S. boots will be on the ground. A temporary pier will enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza every day.
Critics noted it would take months for the port to be built and aid delivered as the number of Palestinian children starving to death continues to rise in Gaza, now at least 17. Gaza's health ministry says the number of dead from starvation is now 21 from ages 1 to 72. Opponents of U.S. support for Israel's war in Gaza rallied ahead of the president's speech, blocking a street and delaying the State of the Union.
When I say genocide, you say Joe! Genocide! Joe!
Outside the White House, peace activists held a People's State of the Union. Here's Samaya Awad with the Al-Dala Project.
We are here to call for a permanent ceasefire and an end to all U.S. military funding. We are here to say the state of this country is frankly pitiful. People don't have health care. People are swimming in student debt. Cops are shooting people in the streets. Migrants are dying at our borders, trying to flee conditions that the United States is responsible for. And our government is choosing to fund and enable a genocide.
During his State of the Union, Biden was heckled by Georgia Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene when he spoke about immigration. On Thursday, the House passed an immigration bill to require immigrants accused of burglary or theft be detained. Alex Gonzalez reports.
37 House Democrats joined all Republicans in passing the Laken-Riley Act to require detention of any migrant who commits burglary or theft. Georgia Republican Mike Collins says Riley, a nursing student, seems to have been murdered by an immigrant from Venezuela, for which he blames Biden's border policies.
As Joe Biden comes to the Capitol tonight to defend his atrocious record, the House is voting to rebuke him for the open border policies that led directly to Laken-Riley's murder.
The White House argues Biden would have shut down the border if Republicans had agreed to the tough immigration bill negotiated in the Senate, but they killed it because former President Donald Trump wanted to have the border crisis to run on. Maryland Democrat Jamie Raskin tells CBS the GOP's lost the ability to compromise.
So when my GOP colleagues say that they really don't want to hear from the president, I take them at their word. They have lost the arts of democratic dialogue.
I'm Alex Gonzalez for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
France inscribed the guaranteed right to abortion in its constitution today, sending a message of support for women's rights on International Women's Day. The measure was overwhelmingly approved by French lawmakers earlier this week, and today's ceremony means it's now the law of the land. France is the first country to explicitly guarantee abortion rights in its national charter. The ceremony is a key event on a day focused on advancing women's rights globally. Marches, demonstrations, and conferences are being held around the world, from Asia to Latin America and the U.S. Many groups, including United Nations agencies, are calling it a day of solidarity with the women of Gaza. Workers from 9 unionized REI stores nationwide hiked to the outdoor equipment company's corporate headquarters in Washington Thursday in protest of stalled labor negotiations. 8 stores, including the stores in New York City, Berkeley, Chicago, and Boston, have joined the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. I'm Christina Onnested, reporting for Pacifica Radio.